If you've been listening to the podcast, you have heard us talk about ovulation before and probably even the importance of ovulation. But are you ovulating? And it's such a hard question to answer. And it feels like we need to go out and have all these tests and really understand. But today we are diving into some signals that you can tell in your body if you are ovulating or not, and why this key indicator, ovulation, is so important, whether you are trying to conceive or if you are not trying to conceive. Ovulation truly is an overall marker of our health as females. And we think everyone should understand if they are or are not ovulating. So today's episode is all about ovulation. Let's dive in.
You guys, we had to hit record because everything we were saying off the line was things that should have been in the podcast. So welcome back to another episode. Today we're talking all things ovulation. Ovulation is one of the phases of the menstrual cycle, but it is also a point in time in your menstrual cycle, something that a lot of women key into if they're trying to conceive. And I think that, Norah, I bet you would agree with me, but it's something that we should maybe like shift our minds around, and it's not really something we should only think about when trying to conceive. It's really that point of health for women. It's that vital sign of if we're overall healthy.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, we talk about periods like they're the main event, but it's really ovulation that's the main event. And whether it's happening or not, like, you know if you get your period or if you don't get your period, but you don't always know if you're ovulating or not. So today we're going to dive into like, how do you know? Why is it important? All of the details around ovulation and why it's not only important if you're trying to conceive. There are so many other benefits and reasons that we should be ovulating in general as menstruating people.
Totally. I want to share too a little bit of background for me on this topic. I've been super keyed into ovulation probably over like the last 8 months, because last year I went into a very high volume training plan as I was training for a 50K. And I had a lot of cycle changes, and I was definitely in a phase of overtraining. I had started strength training probably like a year before. I'd been strength training for a long time, but really, really consistently 3 days a week, lifting heavier. 2023, end of 2023-ish. And so that was part of my routine. And then I piled a bunch of running on top of that and was trying to maintain both. And the high volume was just like depleting the hell out of me. For me, what I recognized as these overtraining signals were things like my period got really short. I didn't lose my period, but my period was really short. Like I would have red blood for maybe 1 day, and then lots of brown blood for like another day, and that was kind of it. So super short cycle. And I wasn't sleeping well. My sleep was super messed up, and that can happen with increased cortisol in the body. And those were just some like, small signals that I noticed. I was not having the same cervical mucus around ovulation as normal. My temperatures weren't rising as much. I was still getting a temperature rise. And so I'm not fully sure if I was ovulating or not. I never used LH strips to confirm ovulation, but just based off of some of those things, I was like, like we're teetering on the edge here. Like things are not as healthy or optimal for me as they could be. And so from there, I kind of, after I ran my race, things went well. That was great. I kind of like reeled it back in. I eliminated a lot of running, have tried to stay consistent with strength training, but I'd say like I've really, really pulled back on my training. I've put on weight, which has been an interesting experience because last year I got very lean and I loved my body in that state. I love my body now too, but it was really fun for me to experience that. But at the same time, it wasn't necessarily, I think, the healthiest for me. So now I probably have a higher body fat percentage, and have been focusing on blood sugar regulation, eating a lot more regularly, eating very consistently, making sure I'm eating enough. And I'm seeing some good markers that things are returning back to where I think they should be.
How long were your like overall cycles, not just your periods?
I was still having 23 to 25 day cycles.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'd say like for me, 23 to 27 days is like pretty normal.
Right. Yeah, no, we've talked about like cycle length before, but sometimes for folks, if you're not ovulating, then your whole cycle may shorten a bit, not just the period itself, because the ovulation is what is ovulation? Ovulation being that main event is when the ovary releases an egg, and it is about midway through the cycle, anywhere between days like 14 to 18, depending on how long your cycle is. But the release of that egg is the shell of it, the corpus luteum, is what ends up producing progesterone, which is our pregnancy hormone. And that's what actually extends the length of the cycle. So it should be at least 10, 12, 14 days after ovulation that we start bleeding. And so that's a good way to tell. And we'll talk about some other quick ways to tell if you're actually ovulating or not. Things that I also really like to talk about when I talk about the release of the egg is that that whole cycle is about 90 days from when the follicle within our ovary starts to grow and mature to when it is released. So if something happened this month, like you got sick or you started training really heavy, you might not see an immediate impact to your cycle, but it might happen a few months later. So it can be, if you're not used to tracking, or if you are, it might be helpful to see some of those patterns of like, well, what actually happened in the last 3 months, not just this last cycle. And the inverse too, like once you start making changes, it can take the at least 3 cycles to 3 to 6 months until you're seeing the changes on the other side too. So I'm curious if you notice, like coming out of this intensive training period, how long, or like, do you feel like you're back to pre?
Yeah. So I was training, or the race was in September. And so I was kind of like, I knew that marker, that 90-day marker of like, okay, let's really like focus on overall wellness and calming the F down for these 3 months and see where I'm at. And then in January, I had a massive histamine response to something in my environment and got an allergic reaction that put me in my entire body in like a panic attack for 3+ weeks. And so I feel like I was just getting there, and then something else happened. And so now it's April, which is, 6 months later, 7 months later, and I'm more than 90 days out from that allergic reaction. And I'm finally feeling like there's some regulation. And I'm so grateful to have known that, it takes 90 days for that corpus luteum to develop, to be supported, and then release the progesterone through ovulation. So I feel like I'm just now getting back on my quote unquote hormonal feet.
Yeah. I'm curious too, if during the period of time where you may or may not have been ovulating, or just having those shorter cycles in general, can you recall, like, were your PMDD symptoms, for the PMDD listeners in the room too, hopefully you can relate to this, did you notice a change in your mood symptoms leading up to your cycle, or just kind of in general?
Yes. I was definitely much more on edge. I think I'm very grateful that I've learned my triggers, as well as how to emotionally regulate when I have experienced those triggers or experienced the heightened sensitivity that I have. So I was able to still manage it, but I was having more experiences that were very heightened for sure.
Yeah. That's so interesting. So I hope that's validating for people to hear too, as like, I started tracking my cycle, I think a little bit over 5 years ago. So having that historical data is really helpful. But things can change. Like, just because you used to have a 28-day cycle or a 24-day cycle or whatever it was, like, you could be in a totally different position this year due to your exercise or your stress or a life transition or like moving, getting sick, as I mentioned, just because it's just data. Like, it is so helpful to see what that history was, but it's not necessarily like you're always going to ovulate on this day. And so when I think back to high school sex ed health class, it's like you can get pregnant at any time. And when you're younger, that can actually be more true because we don't have consistent cycles. But when we're older and we've been menstruating for about 10 years is how long it can take for us to start to have more regular cycles and hormonal changes throughout the month. It's really only a 5 to 7 day window that we're even fertile. So looking out for these signs and signals from our body, that's what keys us in to let us know we're ovulating. And if you are trying to conceive, or if you're avoiding conception or trying to get pregnant, that's the window. But knowing that it's not static, like it can change, and our bodies, I also want to say, are resilient in this, where like this only happened within the last 9 months for you, and you're in a totally different place from 6 months ago because you've taken action and like helping to support your body through lifestyle and stress management to make those changes too.
Yeah, and I would say too, from what I've learned through this experience, is like stress plays such a huge role, especially for our progesterone production and that development of the corpus luteum. Like stress has such an impact. And so whether that be a physical stress or psychological stress, it's like we need to really put in the effort to reduce our stress. You can supplement all day long and
Totally.
eat, but if you're not also managing stress, it's just so critical.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, our bodies were designed to have babies. And that whole mechanism, if we are stressed, the body's like, hey, I can't expend these resources. I don't have the energy to actually carry a child and give what it needs in order for it to grow. We're going to just shut that off right now, which is kind of what happens actually when we're on hormonal birth control and oral contraceptives more specifically. So I did want to talk about this today because that shuts down when you are on oral contraceptive, kind of keeping our levels very static. Our hormones throughout the entire month are being controlled by an outside source, and it's kind of turning off that internal regulation of things. So that's one way that we don't get pregnant when you're on oral contraceptive. But we really want to talk about like how that is detrimental to our overall health in not ovulating consistently, because it really helps our mood. It helps our bone health, our metabolism. Like there are so many things that ovulation does beyond just giving us the opportunity to get pregnant. It's so important.
I think one of the most surprising ones to me was the correlation to bone health. And we've talked about this in previous episodes for sure, but things like being on hormonal birth control for a long time, you start to see these women have more fractures and bone issues. And it's like, that is a result of not ovulating.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, both estrogen and progesterone play a role in bone formation and bone breakdown. And that's why as we enter perimenopause and menopause, there's higher risk for osteoporosis and osteopenia because we're losing our estrogen. So important. Like our hormones are designed to support us. And this is a really, really big component.
Yeah. For someone who's listening and they're like, shoot, I have no idea if I'm ovulating, which like, no worries. I mean, I wouldn't have known, like 5 years ago or less if I was ovulating either. What are some of the signals that they can look for, or where could they start? And I like tracking your cycles. Obviously, we have a whole episode about tracking your cycle. That's a great place to start. And that's part of this. But what are some of the signals from the body?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I will, even just on my own personal update, after tracking my cycle for 5 years and now being pregnant and not having had a cycle for the last 7 months, it's honestly really nice, like not having another thing that I'm kind of managing or keeping track of. Like it's been cool to kind of, I really love data, and I talked about using the Oura ring to help us conceive, and I like that data, but in the same breath, it's also been really nice to just take a break. So for anyone who's trying to conceive or has been tracking their cycle, sometimes tracking can also be a source of stress. It's just like another thing for us to do. So I want to give you permission to tune into your body and tune into some of these signals where we might not necessarily need to rely on information from a device or a test strip or a pregnancy test to confirm, like, trust your body a little bit also. And, easy for me to say at this point, being pregnant, I just want to also acknowledge that. But that I have seen in working with clients can be a source of stress of just like trying to time intercourse. It makes their intimate relations more stressful. And like we just talked about how much stress plays a role in turning on and off ovulation. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, no, completely. I mean, I went through a period of trying to conceive in my previous marriage, and there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
And if you're type A and someone who is a planner, and like you can go over the top. I've done it.
Yeah. But tracking can be really helpful to just get to know your cycle. So if you haven't tracked before, just learning, like, are you typically a 24-day or a 28-day or a 30 or whatever the duration is? And then when we're tracking, and I'm specifically speaking to basal body temperature tracking after we ovulate, which is why it's important to kind of get some data, is when our temperature spikes. So we'll see like about half a degree to 1 full degree of a spike in our temperature. And then the most important piece, what we were talking about, that progesterone release, is what actually maintains the elevated temperature. So you'll see typically that number falling high 97s or above 98 degrees after you ovulate. And we want it to be sustained for at least that 12, 14-day time period. That's the second half of our cycle, or the luteal phase. That lets us know we have enough of that progesterone. It's helping to build up the lining in our uterus, making it nice and juicy and fluffy and habitable for an egg to grow and implant. And then later on, embryo develops. So basal body tracking, really helpful to get that data. But what it doesn't do is tell you when you're about to ovulate. So that's where some of the more physical signs can be helpful. And Monica already spoke to cervical mucus. So you'll notice that your cervical mucus at the beginning of your cycle might look a little bit more creamy, maybe a little clumpy, depends, or lotiony. And then as we're getting more fertile, it turns clearer. It looks kind of like the consistency of an egg white. And it's really stretchy and kind of springy. If you were to put your fingers on the cervical mucus and draw it's like a mozzarella, like a mozzarella string cheese pull, like, that's like that good consistency. And it's typically about the 3 or so days leading up to ovulation, which is when you are also fertile, because sperm can live inside us for up to 5 days. and we can still get pregnant. So that's why that ovulation window is a thing. We ovulate and it's a point in time, but we are fertile for about 5 to 7 days, just depending on when you actually time your intercourse around the release of the egg.
Yeah, a couple of things you said that I want to kind of like bring us back to as well is you talked about the luteal phase, your temperature rising and staying up for 12 to 14 days, which is in the luteal phase because luteal comes after ovulation. We talked about luteal phase defect a little bit in a previous episode with Nicole Chardom. So if you're listening and you're like, oh, my luteal phase is shorter than that, or like, I'm not really getting that length, that would be a good episode to listen to because we did talk about it there, as well as we talked with, I think it was our thyroid episode, and we talked to her about women taking progesterone if you're trying to conceive in the luteal phase to support that. If you're noticing that like you're not maintaining your luteal phase isn't long or something. So we talked a little bit about that in the thyroid episode as well. Is that right? Do you remember that?
I don't remember that, but the thyroid episode is super helpful because thyroid has a lot to do with fertility. If your thyroid is not optimal, it can also impact ovulation. So definitely a great, McCall is the provider that we had on for the thyroid episode. It was a great.
Yeah. So just wanted to call out a couple of those things. Back to the cervical mucus too. I feel like if you are, you're really trying to figure out if you're trying to ovulate or not, LH strips and ovulation predictor kits can be really helpful to know if you're getting that LH surge, which is the luteinizing hormone.
And that comes before ovulation. That's like kind of like the flip of the switch that happens that tells your body like, okay, now is the time to release the egg.
Yeah. And so it can be good to start using those when you're starting to notice that slipperier or more of cervical mucus. So that's kind of before you ovulate, and then the temperature rise is after. So we have these indicators of before and after, and that is allowing us to get kind of a reading on if the in-between is happening, the ovulation is actually occurring.
Yeah. And then like non-tests is your libido higher? Are you feeling friskier, or you like want to be intimate where maybe other times in the month your libido isn't as high? So tuning into that.
And even information that shows that like our faces are more symmetrical during ovulation, and it's literally to like attract a partner.
Yeah.
Wild.
It is so crazy. Some individuals also experience what's called Mittelschmerz, which is ovulation kind of discomfort or pain.
You get it?
I used to, yeah. Yeah. Can you feel it?
Yeah. It's just like a twinge, it kind of feels like a period cramp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it should only be on one side because we alternate which ovary we ovulate from month after month. So if you do experience that, and then also just depending on like if you experience endometriosis or PMDD, these could also be times of the month where you have more symptoms just in general, because what's also happening during this time is we have a spike in estrogen. So for folks who have more sensitivity to those fluctuations or shifts, it might not always be this like feel good in my body time of the month. And I just want to call that out too. A lot of it is focused on like high energy and like feeling sexy and I can do all the things. Well, if you don't feel regulated or you have more sensitivity to these hormonal shifts in your body, this could not be that happy time for you.
Totally. If someone's like, ooh, I've definitely experienced the Mittelschmerz, like it was on my left side last month, whatever, that is an indicator that you were probably ovulating as feeling that pain. Is that correct? Because that's like the movement of the egg.
Yeah, or like the kind of inflammation of the ovary itself in helping to release the release the egg.
So are there prostaglandins that are also released during that time to help push the egg?
I honestly don't know. I would have to look into
I asked
that.
that question for anyone listening because prostaglandins is what like contracts our uterus for us to start our period for the wall to shed. So
Which is
that's what
inflammatory.
often creates period cramps. So I was curious, but no worries.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking more so from the LH, like that's more so the signal. I don't know how much, but I will look into it.
Yeah, no, that just came to mind. Okay, so we talked, those are all kind of like how to know if you're ovulating, things in your body. What are some signals that you're not ovulating?
Yeah, I would say, the opposite of just all the things that we talked about, unfortunately, or especially having shorter cycles in length, or you're not seeing that temperature change. If you're using LH strips, you're not seeing the surge happen. And then mood changes for sure can be wrapped up into that as well. So if you never really get that kind of calming sensation, right? Estrogen is more of our like buzzy and energizing hormone. It's more dominant in the first half of our cycle. Progesterone should be more dominant in the second half, and that's more of the calming and nurturing hormone. So if you never really feel that like balancing act taking place, that could also be a sign for you.
Yeah, and the causes of losing ovulation, and I wanted to clarify too, just because you don't bleed, you could still ovulate and not bleed, right? And
Yep.
vice versa, just because you have your period does not mean you're ovulating.
Correct.
Wild. And that's why people are like, oh, I don't get my period, so like I must not be able to get pregnant. And then they end up getting pregnant. Like, that's not true.
Right. Or like, especially postpartum, I've seen a number of folks who they get pregnant before they even get the return of their period.
Because they're ovulating again.
They're ovulating first before they get their first period. So, again, like taking precautions and whatever that looks like for you, or if you want to have another child right away, just know, and depending on if you're breastfeeding or formula feeding, that's going to change. Typically, your body's ability to start ovulating again. Some of the breastfeeding hormones actually prevent that from happening intentionally. Yeah. So again, individualized here and like whatever your preferences are as well.
So wild. If someone is like, yeah, I'm definitely not ovulating, and they're like, what can I change to support ovulation? Where would you have someone start?
Yeah. I mean, things that I look at for someone's just overall fertility and menstrual health is how are you nourishing your body? And we've talked even in this first season episode, what does nourishment even mean? So beyond just the food component, like how are you filling up your cup and how are you managing your stress? It's really easy for someone to say, oh, you just need less stress in your life. Like, what does that actually look like for you? Like, I personally find when I get a massage or body work done, I feel very relaxed in that moment and it feels really good to me. Whereas my partner hates massages. He's super ticklish and that is not going to be relaxing for him.
David.
I know. He's also not great at giving massages for that reason also. So I gotta outsource that one. But like, I hate getting my nails done. I feel like I'm like tensed and stressed, which is ridiculous. So like, what is actual?
It's like a thing. Yeah. I think understanding what those things are for you. So many of us aren't keyed in.
Yeah, and that is a big piece of all of this is like learning what your individual cues and drivers are to help get your body to that state of if you're wanting to ovulate, if you're wanting to conceive, etc. Or as we're talking about, getting clued into those body sensations. What is your body asking you to do? Is it telling you that it's hungry and you're ignoring those cues, like we got to tune into that.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. God, it's such a complex thing, our bodies, right? As women, we have so many things to think about. We have this like amazing process happening for us all the time. And yet at the same time, our modern world has created so much stress in our lives that it's halting these natural occurrences.
Yeah, I mean, things that I heard you share of, okay, wanting to focus more on restoring your cycle and having more regular periods and ovulation again, that might look like putting on some weight for people. So, most females should have at least 18+% body fat. And when we drop below that, that can start to slow or even stop our ovulation and even our period. And as I mentioned before, like it might not be immediate. So understanding your body, this is individualized, because if you've lived at a low weight for a really long time and you have regular cycles and you are ovulating, this could be different for you. But in order to restore, sometimes we need to feed up, is what it's called, and put on some weight to help signal to your brain and your body, like, hey, we're okay. We're not in starvation mode. We're not in a famine. It's sending signals to all the other organ systems in your body that, okay, now is the time that I could actually expend that energy and sustain a pregnancy. Because again, like that's what our bodies are designed to do. Even if your goal is not to have a child, that's still what the signal our body needs.
And I think that there's time and place for different priorities in our life. I'm coming at this too from like an athlete perspective where, someone is utilizing their body to be the best they can be at X sport. I went and competed at a High Rocks in February, and like watching these women compete at a high level in High Rocks, like they definitely have less than 18% body fat. Let me start there. But they have prioritized this goal and this outcome and this use of their body towards a sport. So I think if, you're choosing a priority that is maybe outside of fertility optimization, or menstrual optimization, whatever you want to call it, I think it's just important for people to be aware of the decision that they're making and making it consciously. Like, okay, I'm choosing my sport right now over potentially my longevity and the longevity of my health. But that's a choice, and there's no shame, I think, in either side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Performance is like performance, and sometimes it does mean going outside the guidelines of your health.
Yeah. And, in working with folks too, I've seen them completing their PhD programs or going through a divorce or moving or other really stressful events in their life, grieving, where their body is not in a quote optimal state. And I think just having the trust and faith that things can return, or our bodies are resilient, you're not broken, is really, really important. I've seen a lot of individuals inaccurately diagnosed with primary ovarian syndrome, or even early perimenopause. And most often that's due to being low weight or restrictive eating or a number of things that are going on, where it's easy to just like get the diagnosis, and not easy, I shouldn't say that. You might be given this diagnosis, but I don't want people to feel limited by that or feel like, that does not feel true in my body. Like, I actually don't think that is, I'm not broken. Like, I might be in an altered state right now.
So much of it too is not exactly what you're saying. It's not a life sentence. It's
Right.
a point in time. And so maybe today you are experiencing some of these syndromes, or you're on one end of the spectrum. Give yourself 6 months.
Yeah.
Commit to some practices that are going to quote unquote revive you or support what your priority is now. And I think that this is something that in our modern medical system, it's just not set up like this, where even, if in the instance of a woman trying to conceive, there's no really conversation outside of, I think, the functional medicine space of prepping for pregnancy. And it's not just like taking a prenatal
Right.
and supporting the baby. It's like, what about supporting the vessel?
Yeah.
Supporting the woman's body. Like Chinese medicine is very different, where they take 6 months to a year to prep the female body to carry the baby.
Yeah.
And we're not just talking about the fetus's health, we're talking about the mother's health, because it's so intertwined. So I think, like, yeah, just because right now in time you're not ovulating or your cycles are off, that doesn't mean that it can't change, and we have the power to do that. Similarly to like male fertility, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I was going to say that too.
Like, there's a lot of conversation about male fertility, and it's amazing that conversation is coming up, because it's not just on the woman, it's on both.
Finally.
But the conversation is often like males can quickly change because they can change faster, the motility of their sperm, and support that through lifestyle and nutrition. But I think more and more they're seeing that women can do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think that like 90-day time period is really good. And like track your cycle for a few months, get to know your body more, tune into those signals, you and your partner, and whether you're in a same-sex relationship or you have a male partner, like taking both of those things into consideration as well. It's not just the egg quality. So don't carry the whole burden yourself, but learning more about yourself. And then of course, like this is what I do in working with folks too, is figuring out what those individual aspects are for someone, where like, what is your history with dieting or your relationship to food? What other components are going on in your life? It's not always just take the supplement or, like it's not always just the food component that we hear so often as well. Your environment, your relationships, feeling safe in your body, all of those things play a role in your ability to ovulate and support this cycle.
Okay, real quick, I want us to just touch on, we've talked a lot about this in the instance of fertility. And of course, like ovulation has such a role in fertility. So it makes sense for us to have that conversation. I think as well, both you and I, where we are in our lives, like you're pregnant. So fertility has been top of mind. I'm 35 and trying to preserve my fertility because I want to have kids in the future. And I'm like, when the heck is that going to happen? So for us, it makes sense. But I'm curious for us to also talk about why it matters for someone listening who's like, I don't know if I want to have kids, or I don't care to think about that yet.
Totally. I mean, we talked about bone health. I would rank that as number one, because you need your bones for whatever you want to do in your life and for however long you want to be here. That importance, even your sleep regulation, your mood, your overall well-being is going to be amplified when you are ovulating. So it's so not just in order to conceive by any means. It is a marker of overall health and well-being and supporting our bodies.
That corpus luteum that we talked about too, that's how progesterone gets created and released into our bodies. And progesterone is the calming hormone.
Yep.
So like you're saying, better sleep, better moods, that has such a role for fertility or not. I think that ensuring that that's occurring in our bodies can create this like more feminine state for women as well.
Yeah, or just that, like, the balancing act. I don't know if you experienced this or anyone can relate being on birth control, but like I felt like I just felt pretty much the same, like, all the time, and not really high and not really low, just like that. And that's the number one piece of feedback that people tell me when they come off of birth control is like, I feel so much clearer. I feel like myself. And I think it's cool that we're dynamic beings and we don't live on a 24-hour hormonal cycle the way that a male body does. And using that to our advantage. Like, we shouldn't be full throttle, go, 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 go all the time, which, like, the first half of our cycle, more estrogen prominent, might drive us to do. We need that gas and brake, and to help us slow down and kind of relax and lean into that, sure, feminine, if you want to call it that. I just think of like yin and yang. Like, we need that balancing act in order to,
I think I say feminine because what I have noticed for myself is I was on birth control for a long time, age 11 until I was like late 20s, mid to late 20s. And so it's really like only been less than 10 years that I've been off birth control. And like you're saying, that like steady state is more male. They're on a 24-hour clock. It's like more steady. And I feel like just in the last few years, I've been able to tap into the feminine and actually like not be frustrated with my own cyclicalness on a monthly basis. And part of that has been tapping into my feminine. So I do think that there's like some level of it being feminine that we get to have these fluctuations and this yin and yang.
Yeah, for sure. I will share, we talked about feeding up or like increasing energy or maybe putting on weight, working on stress management, assessing your environment, a lot of things more actionable. There are some supplements that are really great for fertility or just promoting ovulation. So we can talk really quickly about that. But again, this is where I work with folks individually to see, what do you really need? So really quick, a multivitamin is really important to support our overall health, and our ovulation is a part of that. We need nutrients in order to make our hormones and to be able to make a human, if that was to happen.
You guys, I know where you can find a really good quality multivitamin too.
Yes. No, and I mean, I talk about this all the time, especially around coming off of birth control. Maria is literally perfect just from the amount, the therapeutic dosages. It's really easy. They're in the right forms, making it easier on our body to digest and absorb them. So I'm very particular about quality of multivitamin. And my friends have been asking me a lot for prenatal recommendations as well. So those are things that I'll highlight. Melatonin is actually very antioxidant, anti-inflammatory. So that can sometimes be helpful for people in the like pre trying to conceive mode, or just helping to increase your egg health or egg quality. But you don't want to be taking it if you are actively pregnant or about to conceive. There's a whole lot. We've talked about that in past episodes as well.
Yeah, I think that's one like use with a practitioner.
Oh, for sure. I mean, most of these, and I would say outside of the multivitamin, are individualized. But other, antioxidant properties, myo-inositol is really great from an egg quality perspective. It's very helpful for folks, especially who have history of PCOS. I love that supplement for a lot of different folks. And
I just started taking it.
You did?
Yeah, I'm just noticing like signs of lower progesterone and like with that shorter cycle. So we'll see.
Yeah. And then CoQ10 is another pretty common one, and quercetin.
You guys get the
picture. Also like very anti-inflammatory, helpful. I personally love ginger as well. Just has like digestion, motility, anti-inflammatory. I think ginger can do no wrong. So I'm a huge advocate for ginger as well.
Yeah. I've heard good things too, and this is not advice in any way, shape, or form, but about like a green tea because of the antioxidant properties
Yeah.
for egg quality.
Yeah. I mean, EGCG is very high in anti-inflammatory benefits.
Yeah.
We've talked about matcha and like L-theanine, really beautiful, helping from a anti-inflammatory and also like calming standpoint. Yeah, there are a lot of things, but this is where it's more individualized. Like, what do we truly need to support our bodies and support ovulation?
If anyone's listening to and wants more individualized support, of course you can reach out to Norah and work with Norah on that. Do testing, see what your progesterone is, like all of these things around making sure that you are getting that healthy ovulation. If you're like thinking about trying to conceive and wanting to just do a year-long optimization, highly recommend that. Like, that would be amazing. Work with Norah. Be so great. If you are, just kind of curious about improving cycle health, I'd say like come join us inside Flow 90 at Maria, where we're really just focusing on good daily simple habits to implement that can be supportive. And we called it Flow 90 because of that 90 days. If you do these things for 90 days, one, they're going to become part of your normal routine in your life, so they'll stick around. But also it'll give you that 90 days to really see, like, I'm starting here. This is where my cycles are at. Where am I going to be in 90 days by implementing things that are very supportive and simple?
Totally. And you have to be doing those things first. Like, you can do the testing, you can do the supplements and all the things. But as we talked about in the beginning, if you're not nailing the foundational work to support your body, we can't leapfrog here, unfortunately. I think that's really, really important.
Totally. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for listening. If you found today's episode helpful, something insightful, please come and share it. Shoot this episode over to a friend, and we can't wait to see you in the next episode.
Happy ovulating.